welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. We're reaching you live and direct from the nation's capital, Abuja, Nigeria. On Diplomatic Perspective today, we'll bring you stories from around the globe, and we will get started from the United Nations Food Summit as millions face hunger and Ethiopia is the host. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Now let's get to the stories that we have for the day. Like I said, we're beginning from Ethiopia as the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, his Italian counterpart Giorgia Meloni, and the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres are all among the speakers at the ongoing United Nations Food System Summit, that is UNFSS, in the Ethiopia capital, back there in Addis Ababa, taking place at a time when millions across the world are facing what we call hunger. If we're talking about hunger in this sense, we're talking about serious hunger that has resulted to what we call malnutrition. And not just in Africa, but all over the world. We have a lot of people facing hunger. But when you bring it down to Africa, the problem is massive, it's big. It has eaten deep into the fabric of the society, especially the average citizens of African countries are facing this. Not just Africa, like I said, in all the parts of the world, we also have people who are facing hunger. But then, what is this summit intend to address? It intends to address the hunger situation that has ravaged African countries, not just Africa, like I said, all the parts of the world. Is been inclusive. Sudan, for instance, Gaza, you know what is happening. These are countries that have been facing a lot of problems. And even till now, as we speak, you know the problem happening in this part of Africa. And it's part of the reason why the food summit is happening. And as a matter of fact, these are very big names attending this summit. The Ethiopian Prime Minister himself is part of it because Ethiopia is the host. And of course, his Italian counterpart, Georgia, like I said, the hunger issue is not just in Africa alone. And that's why we even have Italy right here. The Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni, is also going to be part of it. And the United Nations Secretary General in the person of Antonio Guterres is also going to be part of that, because there are so much to be talked about. If the issue of hunger in Africa must be dealt with, there are several things that needs to be done, and it has to be done in collaboration with the United Nations. The United Nations have done so much in Africa and other parts of the world. So this hunger issue cannot be taken for granted at all, and these speakers will need to make their speeches beginning from addressing the issues on ground and strategies on how these issues can actually be handled. Let's move away from there and come back home to Nigeria, where Shettima, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has said the president himself has declared state of emergency on food security out of concern for citizens' welfare. In Nigeria, for instance, you have people crying every day for hunger. The price of staple food, even though some persons are saying, has dropped a little bit, okay? But then other Nigerians are saying that they can't even afford it, despite the fact that there is a little drop, all right, in the price of some staple food, not all. The Vice President Kashim Shettima says the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in the person of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu's decision to declare the state of emergency on food security was not driven by fear. It's not because of fear. It's not because of 2027 like some persons may be thinking, but for the concern that he has for Nigerians. And he said his decision is being driven not by fear but by concern for the welfare of Nigerians. Every president, as a matter of fact, needs to be bothered about the welfare of her citizens. And that's exactly what the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is doing right here. Stanley Nwocha, Shetima's spokesperson, said the Vice President spoke these during a panel session on country perspective at the United Nations Food Summit, Food System Summit, UNFSS+4 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You know, I told you earlier when I got started that this meeting is holding in Ethiopia, and our own Vice President was there to represent Nigeria, and he spoke on behalf of the President during his address to say, well, state of emergency is been declared just because the president is mindful of the citizens. The welfare of the citizens is supposed to be taken very seriously. Some Nigerians may want to argue that fact that the government is worried or bothered, as the case may be, concerning the citizens' welfare. But then I think from the speech being made by the Vice President at the United Nations Food System Summit back then at Addis Ababa is a sign that at least the president is concerned and he's worried over the situation. The rising situation in Nigeria is something else. Remember in 2023, when His Excellency came into office, a lot of promises were being made, and some other policies or executive order, as some persons may call it, also came to the fore, and that has affected a lot of things. The economy is not standing straight the way it ought to, but then picking up gradually, like a statistic has shown, and that has brought about hunger in the land. The floating of the naira, you know, that is one of the things that actually affected the economy in one part. But then some economists have also said, well, things are picking up gradually, and the president, he on his own part, have said, well, there will be light at the end of the tunnel, and that's exactly what Nigerians are looking forward to right now. Let's move away from there and also look at other things. Now we want to move from Africa, Nigeria, and move to other parts of the world, where Russia is meant to face new U.S. sanction unless they end the Ukraine war in 10 days. Who is saying this? Donald Trump, of course. The United States President Donald Trump announces a deadline for Russia to end the fighting in Ukraine or face what we call new sanction. And they were given an ultimatum of 10 days, beginning from Tuesday. Of course, as a matter of fact, 10 days to just come to the table and bring up the ceasefire. This is one war that has left a lot of people in some form of trouble. But then, what has been done? What has been done concerning this war? That is the question a lot of people are asking as we speak. As a matter of fact, some people are saying it's going to be some form of problem. And Trump actually spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One, where he also said he does not plan on attending the G20 summit in South Africa in November, rehashing debunked claims of white citizens being systematically prosecuted and killed in the country. You remember how that issue came up. And the bottom line is that the war needs to come to an end. That's one of the aspects that I'm so interested in, because these things keep happening and a lot of people are facing so much. I don't ever want to pray for a war situation, but then this country is facing this war. This is one war that needs to come to an end. Russia and Ukraine war, 10 days. Still counting anyway. Let's see what will happen from there. But then there is a debunking of claims of white citizens being systematically persecuted and, of course, killed. But then in the country, that is in the United States of America.
Very bad policies. Very, very bad policies like policies where people are being killed. A lot of people are being killed. So I think I probably won't.
Any update?
I'd like to, but I don't think I will.
Any update on when you'll meet with?
By him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President,
And those are kids, whether they talk starvation or not, those are kids that are starving. They are starving. And you see the mothers, they love them so much. And there's just nothing they seem to be able to do. They got to get them food.
All right. That is about the issue of 10 days ultimatum for that fight to actually come to an end. All right, it is still diplomatic perspective, and on diplomatic perspective today, we have decided to look at some very striking stories. Looking at it from different perspective, the view of the story makers. Now, let's talk about this a little bit, where WHO's chief warned of widespread starvation in Gaza. You know what is happening in Gaza? You know the situation in Gaza. Right now, as I speak to you, the World Health Organization's chief has warned that there might be a widespread of starvation in Gaza, saying food deliveries into the war-ravaged Palestinian territory were far below what is needed for the survival of the population. That's the problem. You remember when I was talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, I said there is no country of this world, no people, no citizen deserve to be faced with a war situation. And right now, one of the most devastating situations right here is the fact that there is a shortage of food. When there is no food, when there is hunger in the land, it's just like a war situation. Like I was talking about Nigeria a few minutes ago, I was talking about the fact that some persons are facing some form of hunger because of the instability in the economy and some policy that came up in 2023 when the president came up on board. Then I went further to talk about the Ukraine and Russia crisis, where the United States is saying within 10 days, everything should come to an end. Now we've come to talk about this. What is happening in Gaza is not something that anyone would even want to wish his enemy. And of course, it's a thing of concern. As a matter of fact, the World Health Organization's chief is not ready to keep quiet about it anymore. And he has said the food delivery into the war-ravaged Palestinian territory were far below what is needed for the survival of the population. Meaning the food entering Gaza right now is not sufficient for the people. It's too small for the population, and it's worrisome. It's a problem. That is, people cannot even do anything because of the situation. You and I know what the situation is. But according to Tedros Adhanom, he came up with a report, and it's been said that a large proportion of the population of Gaza is starving right now as we speak. There are some very offensive pictures on the internet about starvation, malnutrition, and a whole lot going on right there in Gaza. But he said he doesn't know what he could call it other than mass starvation. There is nothing else to call it. And Tedros said, well, I don't know what to call that situation. I don't know how to actually qualify the adjective, the right words to use concerning the situation in Gaza, what people are facing, what people are going through. But all that he said he would refer it to is mass starvation. And you know what mass starvation is all about. It's not something to ever pray for. It's not something to even dream of. If it has not happened to you, you may not know how it feels. But then I don't even want to wish my enemies, even though I don't have one. That kind of situation. Except you're being faced with that kind of situation, you know what it means. But then, World Health Organization is concerned about it. You know, the assignment of the World Health Organization across the borders, across countries, from one country to the other.
And a large proportion of a population of Gaza is starving. I don't know what you would call it other than mass starvation. And it's man-made. And that's very clear. And this is because of blockade. And I have said it in my statement, more than 80 days of blockade straight. And then, of course, there is opening now, but it's not enough. It's just a trickle. And people are starving. Imagine 1,026 people have died while trying to feed themselves. If they're not starving, imagine risking their lives. I don't know why we're even splitting hairs here.
All right, now let's take you back to the United States. It is still diplomatic perspective, and now we want to look at a perspective of the ban going on, right, by Donald Trump. The ban going on in the United States, Trump travel ban, they said won't hit Los Angeles Olympics. Los Angeles 2028 Olympics organizers have said the Games will not be impacted by President Donald Trump's ban on citizens from 12 countries from visiting the United States. Cassie Weissman, chairman of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Organizing Committee, told the media, "We were told in a press conference that the U.S. government had made it very clear, very clear, that Trump's travel directive would not apply to the Games, and it's something to actually commend the committee for, all right, because even Nigeria also had its own share of restrictions. The visa, the reduction of visa in Nigeria is something else. And it is even something to talk about. But then it's so good because if you want to talk about Olympics, Olympics have to attract people from every part of the world. You know how Olympic is being played. Different games, and it's going to bring a lot of boost to the United States, as a matter of fact, Los Angeles. And the committee have said the ban will not affect that game. 12 countries from visiting, all right? You know, there is a ban on citizens from 12 countries, and they said that is not really going to affect the game that is going to be coming in 2028. We are in 2025 right now, but 3 years down the line, already people are beginning to put one or two together. But preparation for Olympics is not something that you do in just a few years, in just months. It can be done in months. So I'm not even surprised that the chairman is coming up to talk about this now, so that preparations can actually be ongoing towards that Olympic in 2028. I think on my own part, I would like to give kudos to the organizing committee for that decision and the early information, so that these countries will not stop training and be taken unawares. It's a welcome development.
We, as the IOC, have every confidence in the fact that the local authorities and the federal authorities understand that bringing the games to your country is a big responsibility. It is 206 countries that are preparing to come to the games, and we have traditionally, and also for the LA 28 games, and the federal government has given us that guarantee in the past as well, to make sure that these participants will be able to enter the country. And that is something that we will be definitely looking at and making sure that it is guaranteed as well. Every time that you organize Olympic Games, you usually have a lot of construction taking place. And that creates huge headaches, huge headaches. We don't have that in LA. We have the luxury of not needing to construct anything.
We're well over 60% in contracted revenue, which is pretty unique. We have more revenue today contracted than Paris did total revenue. And we haven't sold a ticket yet. So we feel very good about where we are. But like I said, it's our job to execute every day.
All through Paris, Casey and I would hear, what are you guys going to do next? How are you going to they've raised the bar. What's LA going to do? And we was like, well, trust us, we got it. We know how to do it. We know how to throw a good party or red carpet and whatever. I think one of our goals for the summer games in 2028 is at the end, when the cauldron's out, that Cindy Hook from Brisbane 32, my counterpart, will say, what the heck are we going to do?
Exactly.
All right. As it is right now, Cassie Wasserman, chairman of the LA Trump, said, well, Trump slapped new travel ban on 12 countries, but the United President Donald Trump has signed a travel ban on 12 mostly Middle Eastern and African countries, and reviving a controversial measure from his first term expected to trigger a fresh wave of legal challenges. Trump said that the measure was spurred by a market shift, of course, a flamethrower attack on a Jewish protest in Colorado that the U.S. authorities blame on an Egyptian man that said was in the country illegally. That's one of the problems. Illegal immigrants, you see people living in countries where they don't have the legal authority to leave.
Recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
But then, will you, because of just one person or group of persons, punish a whole country? That's one other thing to look at, because a lot of people are not comfortable with some of this ban, and the move bans all travel to the United States by nationals of countries like Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Brazzaville. These are African countries: Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. These are some of the countries. But according to the White House, said, this is what it is. But then I think it is good to actually know that all of these will not affect the Olympics come 2028. That's the good news to all sports lovers and everyone who is intending to go out for that game. It is still diplomatic perspective, and we are looking at stories from around the world. All right, let's look at this. UK to recognize Palestinian state in September unless Israel acts. What is this act? This statement is actually coming from the Foreign Secretary of British Foreign Secretary David Lammy is the one saying this, that Britain will recognize the state of Palestine when the United Nations General Assembly gathers in September, unless, that's a clause right there, unless the Israeli government acts to end the appalling situation in Gaza. Speaking during a UN conference on two-state solution between Israelis and the Palestinians, Lammy denounces that Netanyahu's government's rejection of a two-state solution has been wrong morally and it's wrong strategically. All right, get that. It is wrong morally and it's also wrong strategically. All right, that's what it is. But then the bottom line is, let there be peace, all right? Because there is no point. This war has been going on for a very long time. But what has been the outcome? Sometimes you were tempted to ask questions why some of the big world powers are keeping quiet. But now I think it's good that UN have come out to say, well, there is an option, there is a clause here. It's either everything come to a standstill or we go forth with our recognition. Well, that recognition, would it spur something different? Would it bring up something different? Is any other thing going to happen additional to that? Yes, there have to be unity. It has to be done unanimously. Everyone needs to come to terms with one another as a people so that we can live peacefully. This is going to be the size of Diplomatic Perspective. Many thanks for staying with us from the beginning of Diplomatic Perspective today. Subsequent editions, we will be having conversation. You can see in our last discussion, we had a conversation about people who are at the diaspora, because we need to know more about them. But then that was in the last episode. Today we have something else, looking at major stories from around the world. Once again, this is going to be the size of Diplomatic Perspective, and many thanks for keeping a date with us, for staying with us from the beginning until now. The next edition will be coming on your way again, and probably we will be having the discussion segment where we'll have an expert talk to us about things happening around the globe and from the international scene. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Try and follow us on all our social media platforms now showing on your screen. And don't forget that Global Television is on DSTV, channel 365. And Star Times, channel 276. By watching us, you'll be kept abreast with things happening locally and internationally. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Bye-bye for now, and have a wonderful evening.
Friend of you